Welcome to Unit 1, Some Aspects of Fiction. This is your complete conceptual guide to the British novel course, covering everything from what fiction actually is, to how the novel emerged in 18th century England, to how comedy became a vehicle for social critique. Let's begin. The novel is, above all, a realistic form. Unlike poetry or drama, it presents that segment of life and society, in more or less approximate terms, which has been seen and experienced by actual men and women of a specific period. The concept of mirroring reality is far more significant here than in any other literary form. While reading a novel, we feel transported to a world with its own laws and rules. Towns, villages, markets, streets hold out as actual places. Characters speak with their own mannerisms. The author, in their own voice, imparts ordinary information about appearance, opinions, and states of mind, drawing us fully into the ethos of the novel's world. Three crucial terms, realistic, imaginative, and fictional, carry distinct meanings in this unit. Realistic means mirroring actual social life. Imaginative means an unreal creation of the mind, closer to poetry. Fictional means invented, bearing no direct relation to known reality. The irony is that the fictional novel can deliver the most profound truths about real life. Is fiction simply a lie or a non-fact? The unit offers a striking analogy. The compulsive liar is mentally alert, constantly tracking the audience's reactions, endlessly inventive. The novelist does exactly this. But while poetry and drama deal in high universal truths, the novel rests with ordinary life, and through this apparent lie, delivers something truer than most non-fiction. Fiction and history are deeply entangled. Walter Allen, in the English novel, points to how characters in a novel symbolize specific attitudes in a given society. Impressions precede characters, they are molded and remade by the author's imagination. Characters cannot be rendered flesh and blood unless placed in identifiable circumstances of our own world. Through characters in Tom Jones, Allworthy, Squire Weston, Jones, and Blifil, we gain close familiarity with 18th century England. Allworthy embodies the benevolent gentry, Weston the crude old squire, Jones and Blifil the contrast between natural goodness and calculated villainy. Society becomes a necessary component of fiction. Fiction becomes significant history.
Yet the novel differs from history in one crucial way. History is a continuous process, no clear beginning or end, its lessons scattered and tentative, open to many valid interpretations. The novel, by contrast, begins and ends at points deliberately chosen by the author. Its moral is central and designed. It is entirely one person's creation, it could be deferred or discarded. The ending of a novel is always significant, it carries the lesson the novelist set out to convey. Walter Allen writes that works of history, especially Clarendon's History of the Rebellion with its great portrait gallery of characters, were among the strongest influences on what was becoming the novel. Before the novel could be born, there had to be faithful descriptions of the actual world. Alongside history, accounts of real-life adventure like Dampier's A New Voyage Round the World played an equally significant role. Many scholars trace the novel's origins through earlier prose works, claiming a direct literary lineage. The unit warns this is dangerously insufficient. Literary history assumes literature produces itself from within, that later works grow directly from earlier ones. But the novel cannot be understood apart from larger history, its specific economic and political struggles. The absence of these references from standard discussions of the novel's emergence is, the unit insists, disappointing. Before the 18th century, prose had seldom been a medium of serious creative endeavor. Writers chose verse, longer poems, poetic drama shared among a narrow educated circle. The idea of a mass reading public approachable through the printed word was entirely new to the 18th century. Something fundamental changed, and it was not literary evolution, but social revolution. The middle classes rose through hard labor and industry. They asserted rights to equality and influenced policymaking. Sharp rational questioning, self-assurance, and vigor found a true medium in prose. They wanted to know and understand. Dialogue was more important than statement, it gave them the chance to question and disagree. They theorized, philosophized, cracked jokes, and played with language. Fielding exemplifies this activated, energetic mass of people.
One of the new issues handled with unprecedented seriousness was marriage. In the Restoration period, marriage among the upper class was shaped by social propriety, class distinction, and religion, a well-established institution reflecting the older social structure. But things changed radically in the first quarter of the 18th century. Marriage came to be seen through morality, ethics, love, courage, and commitment. The new woman, becoming aware of her place in society, entered focus. The evolution of a new literary form is a dialectical interaction between a writer's urge to communicate and an environment that resists existing modes of expression. Women, wives of productive middle-class men, had leisure, literacy, and an interest in questions of right and wrong. The market spread to cover ideology and spirituality. Authors could evolve a new form, one that served as an appropriate vehicle for entirely new purposes.
A significant early 18th century development was the rise of the periodical, a magazine or pamphlet engaging the average middle-class person in useful conversation. The village parson had once interpreted life for the common person. The new gentleman in the making needed a secular equivalent guidance delivered at home, without compulsion of a specific place or hour. The precondition was literacy. In its infancy, the novel incorporated the functions and traits of this periodical. 18th century comedy differed immensely from that of the 17th century. It became lighter in vein, dealing with issues that could be resolved, social manners, love, and individual choice. The relationship of love became extremely important in social discourse. The man and woman together took the decision to marry, setting aside the pressures of family and society. As a consequence, norms and principles of orthodoxy came under severe criticism. Marriage became a means for the middle class to question the values espoused by entrenched interests. The focus on social manners takes us away from questions of work and shelter to questions of ethics and behavior, the concerns of those who have already solved the problem of bread and butter. The issues of virtue, goodness, morality, and kindness are of great interest to progressive, upwardly mobile sections of society. Under the 18th century perspective of manners, love is a challenge between two relatively free individuals. Society causes problems, but they prove to be mere inconveniences. Love offers the man and woman scope to draw on their inner resources and assert their selfhood. The journey to marriage, even when the partners are socially unequal, is more or less smooth. Opposition raises eyebrows and inspires some scheming, but others stand in support. The clash ends in ruffled feathers, not violence, comedy, not tragedy. In the 16th and 17th centuries, love and marriage could not be separated from social structure. They were social and political events, statements about families, dynasties, and the important streams of traditional behavior. But the 18th century transformed this entirely. Love became personal, marriage became moral, and the individual, not the dynasty, became the unit of social and literary analysis. To sum up Unit 1, The middle classes confronted transition, how to interpret the changing world following their economic rise. History could not be rolled back. Change offered no clear direction. Writers filled this spiritual vacuum through conversation in prose. The novel mirrors society, fiction becomes significant history, prose rose with the middle class, and comedy became social critique. These are your key arguments for the exam. Remember, realistic, imaginative, fictional, Walter Allen and Clarendon, The Periodical and The Village Parson, Fielding and Tom Jones.